So I've had quite a few new subscribers lately, which is pretty cool because I don't really like pimp this channel that much. I'll post links on my Facebook or Instagram when I do a video, but people are finding this stuff and finding it pretty entertaining. But one of the questions that I get asked quite a bit, and I've said it in multiple videos, that if there's something you want to see, let me know, and I'll try to do a video about it. And I've said a couple times about the wiring on this bike, because it does have a Fueltech standalone, and standalones in general seem to intimidate people. And I'm a first-time standalone user. I've been racing bikes for 25 plus years at this point, and a lot of basic wiring knowledge, but standalone was scary for me as well. And I knew I just had to get to that next level. The way to not be tied to doing some bullshit Woollock racing tune stuff, which actually cost me a motor. The way to break out of that stuff and be self-sufficient was, and not have to hack, ECU, tuner, editor, all that bullshit. I needed to do standalone. It's the only way to go faster and not be, limited to your options and your tunability. And also, it provides a lot of safety features that'll make your whole program run better. Good data makes for good passes. Good passes makes for good data. It all kind of goes back and forth. But with that, I'm not here to just pimp standalones, but there's a lot of questions that pop up about standalones. And if I can answer any, being a first-time user and still, new to this stuff, this is my, I think it's my third year with this standalone. I'm still learning. I still look at data a lot. I love data. But I'm still figuring out shortcuts, different things I can change, different ways to go about making changes to get the same result, or easier ways to do things. But looking at the data and understanding what it's telling you. And I'm getting pretty good at it, as far as knowing after I make a pass, being the one that rides it, build it, ride it, tune it, everything. After I make a pass, I can, in my head, I can say, something seemed goofy there. And I'm going to figure out what it was. Data log will tell me, and I can actually, I'm getting good at locating those issues and figuring out what's doing what. Why is timing doing this? Why is fuel doing that? Why is boost doing something? But that quick intro out of the way about being new to the whole standalone thing, the question comes up a lot about people wanting to try to do it themselves, is the wiring. There is a lot of different ways you can wire one of these things, and my way, I'll say it right now, is not the prettiest. It is not the best. I don't use all super high-end, like, I'm just going to use DME as an example. Just, everybody knows them as being high-end. It does not look like one of their installs. It's my install. And it's simple to me, and it was easy to source the parts that I used. I didn't have to struggle to hunt stuff down. David Ligori Drag Racing was huge in getting me to kind of wrap my brain around what I needed and how I needed to have things wired. And then I kind of took it from there to what I needed to do it so I understood it. I didn't want to take the bike somewhere, have somebody else do it, and get it back and be like, every time I have a problem or I got to troubleshoot something, I didn't want to be on the phone or have to be dragging the bike back and forth to someone's shop. I needed pointers, I needed tips, and there are good people out there that'll help you. And especially if you buy a Fueltech, get it from David. You won't regret it. Uncomparable customer service. You're not buying I'm not here to just preach Fueltech. Buy from someone that's going to service what you have. Someone that's going to support you. You're part of the price that's built into these units, being kind of pricey, is the support. If you're just looking for cheap, you're going to get cheap, and you're going to get cheap service, and you're going to be left hanging, and you're going to be paying somebody like David that you should have bought it from in the first place to fix it for you. But either way, the bike is wired up what I feel was the simplest way possible. So I'm going to get into showing the way I kind of attacked it, and see if it maybe makes sense to some of you guys that are mechanically inclined, but maybe just a little nervous about all the wires, because it's intimidating. It looks like a lot. But I'll show you basically how I started with this bike, and it It was time consuming, but it's not impossible, and it didn't take forever. I had the bike from the time I got the ECU with the harness. I would say about a week of me working on it after work and doing some research and kind of getting better understanding of what's what. That's all it took. It was just some time after work every day and some patience and asking some questions and digging in. So I'm going to show you a little more in depth, especially some of the, like I said, some of the people that are pretty new, maybe didn't watch all the other channels where I've had the bike broken down where you can see some of this. I'm going to show you in all its either to you attractiveness or ugliness. I don't care what you think of it. It works. And I've had zero issues with wiring on the bike, and I've had to chase zero problems on the bike. So it's not always how it looks, it's the thought behind it. You know, take that for what it's worth. So we'll go and I'll show you my method here. So one of the first things I wanted to start with is this Fueltech software. You don't even need to own a Fueltech yet. You don't have to have an ECU or a harness in your hand. You can go and download the software for free, open it up, select whatever model ECU you're going to use, because the software works on the 450, 550, and 600. Select whatever ECU you're planning on getting or you're thinking about getting, and then you go in and select all the options that you're going to need for your bike. What sensors you want to use. You obviously got to pick fuel injectors, drive shaft RPM. We got TPS, oil pressure, wastegate increase, wastegate decrease, power, ground, RPM signal, air temperature, fuel pressure, RPM reference, everything you're going to need to make the bike run. And again, like I said, if you buy this from Ligori, he'll walk you through the essentials you're going to need to make the bike run. And there's some stuff on here that I'm using you might not need to use. This is a turbo bike. Maybe you're running all motor or nitrous, you won't need some of this stuff. Like I got a shock sensor, boost activated output turned on, gear shift output, what else? Wastegate pressure, a scramble button, crankcase pressure, tire temperature. This is all stuff that I've since added. I started out simpler. This is stuff, or some of this like tire temperature, that type of stuff. I've added that in as I've had the bike running. But for starters, you go through and you select what inputs and outputs you're going to need, and this thing generates a wiring diagram for you. It tells you what pin number, what color wire, and where you need to run it to. And again, like for your inputs, these would all be from whatever sensor you got using. Say it's a shock sensor. You'll have a 5-volt power, a 5-volt ground, and a signal. The signal would be what goes to these outputs. Or I take that back, that would be an input wire. Output would be whatever you got active or you're turning on. So like I said, this is huge. And you print these out and then just keep them with you while you're wiring the bike, and you just individually, one by one, start laying out the wires where you want them to go. Another trick is I unpinned every wire I didn't need. I unpinned it. So instead of having 26 wires out of this harness and 26 wires hanging out of this harness, I ended up with maybe 18 and maybe 15, whatever. You can eliminate wires. It makes the wiring simpler. Another trick is the wires that you unpin from the harness that you're not using for something, those wires I used for running leads back from sensors, so a lot of the colors all correspond with each other. So cool trick with the Fueltech, but if you have never seen it, this is a huge help in the Fueltech software. So like I said, kind of have an idea of how you're going to lay out the bike and what you need. Start with your wiring diagram, and then we'll show you how I got stuff mounted now. So here's kind of the brains of the operation. Up here we have the plug for the wideband O2 sensor. This is actually my USB communication port. And then here's my 2 connectors for the ECU. Like I said, it looks like a lot of wires. It's not. Once you string them out, you go, these 4 are for coil, these 4 are for ignition, or I mean not ignition, for an injector. Once you start stringing them out and kind of laying them out where they need to go, you can start tidying them up. And as I back up, you can see it starts to look busy, but the way this bike is wired is if I just cut a few zip ties, I can unstring any sensor on the bike individually by itself without cutting into the harness. So what looks like kind of a glob of wire or like all these sensor wires here, you can see how everything is individually shrink wrapped. That to me was the easiest way to do it. I didn't like the idea of having everything in one bundle and stringing it. Granted, the possibility of having a problem is pretty slim, and you might not ever have to tear into the harness in any fashion. But I figured if maybe I routed the wires goofy into a spot that I didn't see the rubbing somewhere, and all of a sudden I'm getting a goofy sensor feedback from something, and I don't have to cut into harness to replace wires. I could just cut a few zip ties and pull out those 2 or 3 leads and restring them. That easy. But like you see here, I have here's my coil wires that run down to the spark box, or this is the igniter for the coils. You can see I run all my sensors are remote, and every sensor, it's a 3-wire sensor. You got power, ground, and signal. So what happens there is this side of the bike, this is how you keep things easy. Easy peasy. So these bus bars I got here, as you can see right here, they're all split. The top half of these, this is all sensor 5-volt power, and this is sensor ground. So you can see every individual sensor runs in and gets its own power. Some of them I got doubled up on because there's more sensors than screws, but that individual lead runs back to each sensor. Same with the ground. And then the signal wire from each sensor, like say this is my wastegate dome pressure sensor. Sorry, my camera's drifting. Dome pressure sensor. So like I said, 3 wires, 5-volt, ground, and signal. That signal runs all the way through the harness, and it connects to the back plug. So if I were to unpin number, whatever, we'll say it's, pin 12. Oh, God, my camera keeps drifting. Say I unpin number 12 on this harness, might be the number for wastegate dome pressure. That pin, no joints, no nothing, no connections to fail, all the way down to that connector. So all I got to do is if something fails, I unplug this sensor, I unpin it out of the connector, and pull off my power and ground, and everything is wide right here. Power and ground go this way, signal goes that way. Like I said, I cut a few zip ties, bing bing, I can undo an entire sensor lead if I need. And it's the same with everything all the way back to even like the fuel pump. Fuel pump outputs are all wired the same way. So say the bottom half of this bus bar, these are battery ground, battery positive. So same thing for stuff like shift solenoids, whatever, anything that needs 12 volts comes to this side. There's battery ground. These are the 2 main cables coming right from the batteries. And then outputs from the ECU, anything that needs to be triggered, turned on. Like I got power to the ECU, power to the lights, and fuel pump. This bike has gotten a lot simpler over the years, and I literally only have 3 things being triggered by relays, and these are ground triggered. So all I got to do is I'll get a ground signal from the ECU to this, triggers that relay. The relay is, all these relays got a main lug up here for power, and they're all negative triggered. I'm kneeling down, sorry, I'm getting old. So all the ECU has to do is send a signal through these wires, which ground these relays, which complete the circuit. So you got your power in, and here's the outputs to, there's my lights, the ECU triggers, fuel pump, and then I run a solid state 75 amp relay. This relay is for both the coils and the injectors. So everything is off one solid state relay, pretty much fail safe. So this might look complicated, and like I said, this is the way I did it, and this isn't the way you'll see a lot of other people do it. You'll see a lot of real simple little relay bars, everything tidied up into one big harness running down through here. I wanted to be able to put a test light or a voltmeter on any one of these things to figure out problems. I'm a one-man show, so I got to be able to troubleshoot this on my own, on the fly, sometimes by myself, on the road, out of a trailer somewhere. So you can see here's all the sensors running to the back of the bike, kind of strung up nice through here. I believe all I got in the back for sensors is I got the shock sensor back here. So the shock sensor's right here. We'll have power for the fuel pump. I have tire temp, and I think I just got tail light wiring that just runs back to the tail lights back here. So there's not a whole lot of wiring, and that's the other thing I did on this bike is all of the wiring for anything for turn signals, headlight, even the starter circuit uses the factory starter relay mounted down here. That whole system for the lighting, the starting, even like when I had a charging system on it, that's all separate from the Fueltech. I didn't want to take a chance of anything like a stupid headlight bulb, a shorted out taillight blinker, something keeping me from being able to make a pass, causing the Fueltech to short out or glitch, something stupid. All of the lighting on this bike is absolutely 100% separate from the wiring that makes the bike run. I don't know if I said that right. All the wiring for the lighting is separate from what makes the bike run. That makes sense? So yeah, like I said, all it takes is just like a little creativity. This is just a piece of Kydex plate that I made as basically my relay board. And it's tucked in nice inside the side of the fairing. And I can actually get in here to replace fuses with the fairing on it. But the side panel on the bike comes off pretty quick if I have to get in here and access anything. So is it lightweight? Don't know. Is it the cleanest, the neatest idea? Don't know, don't care. It's what worked for me. This is how my brain operated, was I needed to have every individual wire going somewhere and not get lost. So that was easiest to make all these connections up here. So as I'm stringing stuff on the bike, I just right up here, zip zip, connect the signal, we're good. Yeah, so that's basically the sum of the wiring on this bike. Like I said, maybe it looks like a lot to some people, maybe it doesn't, but there's really, you know, if you break down where things are kind of routed to have to go somewhere, this is pretty much the clump of the wiring right here to run the bike. All that runs down this side is a few sensor wires and the connector to the Spark Pro. So pretty simple. Remote relays, or not relays, remote sensors. I keep everything up here because I don't like having everything mounted and bouncing around on the motor. So I just have 3 AN hoses running to all the functions I'm monitoring. Like right, these 3 are oil, fuel, and crankcase pressure. And by doing this, because the Fueltech, the dash is the ECU, so all your wires run from the dash. Everything for the bike is up front. So by having sensors up here, I don't have any wiring running back over the motor for different things to go to connect to a sensor. So hopefully that makes sense to some of you guys. Like I said, if you want like any better detailed type stuff for the wiring on here, go ahead and ask. I can, send me a message. I can send you pictures if you want to see other things of how I did it. Like back here, the injector harness and the coil harness, all super simple. The wires just come around, run over the side of the motor, and connect up injectors, connect up coils. Not real fancy, nothing special, pretty simple. So it's kind of a little quick video, not many segments or nothing fancy here, but like I said, new subscribers maybe have not seen the bike, and many people have asked for just kind of how I went about wiring it, for being a newbie with a standalone and my first time wiring a bike like this, and 0 issues. So even if you only get, from me, you only get a few ideas of something to do from me, and you still want to do it your way, man, put more power to you. I love that shit. So if I can motivate somebody into trying it and do it themselves, this is proof right here. This is proof you can do it. I'm one-man deal here. Did it myself in my little, 2-car garage here. Actually, I take that back. That was a straight lie. This was wired in a storage unit. I just recently moved into this 2-car garage. So yeah, I did this in a storage unit. So have at it. If you ain't doing it, you ain't trying. Hang around for the next one.